She's a neurodivergent kidlit writer, blogger, feature interview host, and author of ADHD and Me. My guest on today's episode is Chelsea DiCicco. We talk about publishing, traditional versus self-publishing, joining and finding a community in the kidlit space, and our favorite shows to veg out to.
Wait. I worry what you just heard was, give me a lot of bacon and eggs. What I said was, give me all the bacon and eggs you have. Do you understand?
Oh, Mom, you're doing great!
Thanks!
I love it!
Hey guys, thank you for visiting my website today. I am Chelsea DiCicco. I'm the author of ADHD and Me. Okay.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Could you tell me a bit more about your background as a writer and how you got into this world?
Yeah, so I actually took some notes down. I was trying to think of some things to kind of explain because I, with ADHD, tend to sometimes go off on tangents. So my traditional trajectory towards publishing started in 2020, but I have been writing stories and known since I was 4 years old with complete confidence that it's what I wanted to do. Which is kind of funny because I went into pursuing pharmaceuticals and medical things, which was definitely not my calling, but I ended up back here. And so I started out doing independent publishing. I had written a manuscript in 20.
Uh-oh.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
Yay! Awesome.
Well, hey,
okay.
Thanks for hanging in there, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming back.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm going to read something here, and I want you to, I've got some questions about it. Okay. More about Chelsea. Children's book writer from picture books to early readers, chapter books, middle grade, you name it. Nocturnal cinephile. Movies of choice.
I like comedy.
Okay.
I'm a big kid, and I think probably my favorite movie is the Lego Batman movie.
Oh, fun. Okay, I've
It's
seen clips
good.
from it. Yeah. Okay. Is it better than The Dark Knight?
Yes, in my opinion.
Okay. From a comedy aspect, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
A lot funnier.
Alfred, there's something wrong with the back computer. Watch this. Computer. Nothing. Computer. Do you see what I'm saying?
There's nothing wrong with it, sir. I've just taken away your computer privileges.
do you watch movies just to fall asleep, or are you just do you watch the movies all the way through? Because my husband and I both will watch a movie and we don't finish it if it's at night.
So I'm bad about watching movies. I'm actually better about watching TV shows, and it's the only time I can turn my brain off.
Oh, yeah.
Having a creative brain, I don't know. I'm constantly working all the time, and it's the only time I can actually let myself unwind. And I think that's probably too why I kind of lean towards humor, because it kind of puts my brain at ease and lets me laugh. But yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I have a show that I veg out to, or just like you said, just kind of turn off. What would that show be for you?
I am a huge The Office fan, and I love New Girl and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and probably Parks and Rec, because it's just so relatable. If you've ever worked in government work, it just becomes funnier.
Those are classics, for sure. So we'll answer to the library fox.
Yes.
Where does this nickname come from?
So my favorite animal is a fox and bats, but I really, really love foxes. And so being a librarian, yeah, that was my nickname, the library fox.
While we're on the subject, tell me more about being a librarian and what that was like. I remember you at Hendersonville Public Library, and I feel like whenever I did an event there, I was just so impressed with your team or the team there and just how accommodating everybody was. It was a really great experience for me coming into it, kind of being nervous about doing a library event. But you were like, oh, can I photocopy some of your coloring pages for you? You guys offered me water. It was a really great experience. What was the experience of being a children's librarian specifically for you?
I actually fell into the role of working in the children's library because I was there doing book events for my story ADHD and Me, and I was always at the library anyway getting stuff because I'm a bookworm and I'm also a writer, and if you're writing children's books, you have to be reading children's books. You have to be current in that. And at the time, the library director, who at the time was Diane, she was like, do you want a job here? Because I currently was working from home, just focusing on my writing craft. And I was like, well, this sounds like a dream come true job for me because I'm here anyway. Wouldn't it be great to work here? Wow. And it just so happened that they had an opening role in the children's department, which was perfect for me because I love working with kids. So it just kind of worked out. And yeah, it was a great experience. I loved it so much. I got to do crafternoons, which I'm actually kind of not really a very good at crafts person. But I love the story part of it. I would get to pick a story with the kids. Sometimes we'd do 2 or 3 stories centered around whatever craft we were going to do. My favorite was when we did nature days where we would pick a nature book and then go out into nature and do some kind of outdoors craft. That's really probably my go-to, going outdoors, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. I loved working with the kids. Yeah.
What was one thing that you learned as a librarian, or was there, that helped you as a writer?
So you learn very quickly, writing in a children's space, especially picture books, is very interesting because you have to think about who your gatekeepers are. So you're writing a story that has to appeal to a child, right? Mm-hmm. And for picture books, that's going to be between the ages 4 to 8. So you have to think what is important in a child's world from the ages 4 to 8? What are things that are exciting? What are things that are fun? And then you have to also think, okay, now I have to market this not just to the child, but to the adult, because they're going to be the one picking it up. Mm-hmm. In a library, it's a little different than where if you were in a bookstore or something, a lot of times the parents are the ones who are going to be selecting books for their kids, but you do kind of have to think about it from that publishing aspect of okay, who am I marketing to? Mm-hmm. Who is my target audience? And working in a library, I think kind of helped in a lot of ways to see what parents were looking for their kids. Okay. Seeing depending on their age range, if they're looking for early readers and what types of stories they're looking for. But I think probably the biggest hit always, for doesn't matter what age the kid is humor. Humor is unanimously mm-hmm. the number one thing that kids want to laugh and go on a journey where they're having fun. Mm-hmm. So I feel graphic novels that had humor were very appealing. And if you're looking at picture book space, anything by Ryan T. Higgins, the Mother Bruce series, or We Don't Need Our Classmates, things like that are funny and series driven are so great. Kids really enjoy series. So yeah, those are a few things that I learned while I was working there, and I feel they help me with my writing now too. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways.
You touched on comp titles a little bit, I feel earlier. Did you say something about comp titles?
I haven't, but I can talk about
I thought, okay, maybe I was imagining things. I'm sorry. Yeah, I would love to know about this topic, comp titles, because as I'm learning about querying and things like that, I would say some of the things that inspire me are very vintage. And I want to say, yeah, I'm trying to emulate the style of Clifford or Madeline or something of the like. But I've also heard, don't mention comp titles that are over 5 years old.
Comp titles are notoriously dreaded for a lot of people to try and figure out comp titles for their stuff. That's really common thing. Comp titles are usually you want to stay within 3 to 5 years max, right? Of course you can do anything sooner, but like 3 to 5 years is as far out as you want to go for a comp title. I know, especially in the writing space, for illustrators specifically, like if you're just doing illustration, I don't know if that same rule applies, but I do know that for writing, that is a big rule, especially for like picture books and younger readers, just because market trends are constantly changing. So like if you're looking at something that was published in 2020, right, that's already kind of hit its expiration date. So you're wanting to always stay within that range of just a few years. Yeah.
Sure. That's a good point. So going back to your first independently published book, this ADHD and Me was your first, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my first children's book that I did.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about your experience independent publishing, because I've self-published and now I'm trying to learn the traditional world. So what is traditional versus independent? What was that like? You can start wherever you'd like.
Like I had mentioned before the power went out before, I have been writing forever, and I, for whatever reason, didn't consider like going into writing as a career. I don't know why. Like I always knew that I wanted to write, but I guess I didn't think about writing to share with other people when I was young. I don't know. But I went into like medical pharmaceuticals, that direction for school, and I really quickly realized that that was not something that I enjoyed doing. And I had started doing childcare when I was really young. Like I started just babysitting for everyone who I could, like in our neighborhood and area. And then I ended up going into like childcare, like full time. Once I realized that I really did not want to do the medical. But throughout all of that time, I was continuing writing. I would come home in the evenings and write, and that was just my outlet, and I loved it, and it was for me. But I didn't share it with anybody. I mean, my parents knew, and like my sister and like my best friend, but those were the only people who knew about any of these stories or characters or anything. And then in 2016, I wrote this manuscript, and it was very deeply personal to me. It was about a little girl with ADHD and how she saw the world. And I shared it with some friends, and I shared it with my family. And this story was different. Everybody was like, unanimously, they were all like, this is really special. You should do something with this. Like, you should pursue publishing this because it could really help people. And that was like, I always think of it kind of like in Dumbo when he has the little feather that kind of gives him the courage to fly. Like,
Oh my goodness.
I didn't really feel like I could fly. And then I was just given that little feather, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do this. And it was really more of like, I wanted to do this for other people because other people were now like, you should do this. And that is when my introduction to independent publishing started. Yeah.
Here, Dumbo. Come on. Show him.
And it was a lot of fun. Like, I definitely had to learn a lot of things, trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up finding my illustrator, who's located in Australia. And it's funny because she's a former librarian too. She was a librarian for 30 years. I had a very specific idea for how I wanted the book to be laid out, which I feel like with independent publishing, there is definitely a lot more freedom that you have.
Sure.
You get so much more say and the exact design and layout, and pretty much everything is in your control, really.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I went through that process, and then once I finally did publish it, I realized all of the hurdles that come with independent, though. Like, for example, schools and libraries, like education, deeply important to me. So I really wanted to get my stuff into schools and libraries, but that is a very difficult thing to do with an independently published book. And there are a lot of reasons for that.
Yeah, why? I'm curious.
So one of the biggest reasons, and also for independent bookstores, which I'll explain all of that too. So independent bookstores have a very hard time getting books that are published by indie authors because they don't have any kind of return policy. And for most places, you need to have a return policy. So basically, the only way you could get your stuff out is through Amazon. And while Amazon is a huge company, there's a ton of competition. And it just kind of depends, I feel like, on what you are wanting for your book. If you're happy with having your book just available through online sales, through your website, through Amazon, then you could do independent and be very happy and successful doing that. But as far as like children's books, when you think about who your audience is, again, children are not going to be online on Amazon, like looking for your book, or especially on a subject like ADHD, something like that. That's usually going to be a parent. And I feel like one of the easiest ways for parents to have access to things is when you are able to market things through schools and libraries, because that's usually where parents are going to find things. It's more accessible to teachers that way too. And so I feel like while self-publishing, this one project did work for me, and I'm very happy that I did it. I realized through all of that I would really like to do traditional, just so that I could get into those avenues, because schools and libraries are important to me.
Absolutely. I didn't realize that about the, what is the return policy thing? So
having a return policy for your stuff. So I actually went through Ingram Spark just so that I could set up a return policy so that I could get my stuff into places like Barnes and Noble. But if you don't go through that platform, there's no other way really to have that kind of setup. And it also doesn't give you like a discount, like a distribution discount to major retailers, which most major retailers are looking for like a 40% discount. That's kind of standard for most traditional published books. So it's hard when you don't have that traditional publisher like to offer those things when you're doing independent. Because when you're like publishing, let's say like Amazon KDP, you don't have the same options, and you don't have the same resources that you would be able to with a traditional publisher.
Right.
It's just a little bit trickier if you're independent.
Okay. Yeah, that's all that good stuff. I learned when I self-published Bird in the Tree that saddle stitching was not the way to go when it came to putting things even in like the bigger local retailers, because that is competing with shelf space, and like it would have to be a face out thing. And what makes traditional publishing appealing to me is a lot of that distribution side of things and marketing that is built in for you. I'm still considering self-publishing in the future, because there's a part of me that doesn't like the timeline of trying to get a project that you love out. But tell me about your experience so far traditionally publishing.
I started my journey of traditional publishing, like even pursuing it in 2020. And like most writers who didn't have any prior experience or training in the beast of this traditional publishing, I was really lost. I had a lot of stories, but no idea what the industry standards were, what the craft or formatting rules on word counts, trends, like all of that fun stuff. So I made the fateful mistake that a lot of newbies make, which is querying agents way too early, like with stuff that's like not anywhere near polished, like embarrassing.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was like one of those trial and error things. I started sending queries in 2020, way before I should have been sending anything out. And
what do
it
you
was
mean, like before you had an editor or critiques of it? What?
I didn't share my work with anybody because I didn't realize that I needed eyes on my work. I was looking at it as a very like, what's that expression when like the glasses? Rose-colored glasses. I was just looking at publishing as this magical world, and I was like, I love stories. I write stories I could publish. But I didn't know like what any of the rules for publishing were, or even querying. So I just kind of started sending stuff before really knowing what I was doing. And it was mostly crickets for a while. And you have to think 2020 was also a time of like COVID. So, and they were publishers and editors like, and agents were just getting slammed with so much. They were very backed up. So it was mostly, I didn't hear anything back. And then I got a few rejections. And I kept asking myself, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not hearing anything back? And then in 2021, I had a very kind agent who showed interest in me and my work. And she was even thoughtful enough to offer me some publishing advice. And that was a major turning point for me. It helped me to make leaps and bounds. Like, so that following year, I joined the 12 by 12 challenge. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's hosted by Julie Headland, but it's a writing organization, and it has a ton of resources for writers and illustrators who work with picture books, especially. So yeah, it was great. I was no longer alone. I had found community and a lot of answers to questions that I had that I didn't know where to find. And yeah, so in January of 2021, I became a member of that community, formed my first critique group, and just have not looked back.
Oh my goodness, this is great. This is why I'm doing this. I want to learn, and I want to share with people like you and me. Like you were new at one time, I'm new now. I want people to find, okay, 12 by 12. I'm going to look that up, and obviously it's helped you a lot. That's awesome. Yeah.
It was a fantastic starting point. I feel like I learned so much. I was a member of their community for several years. I think I did 3 years with them. I'm currently a member of a lot of different writing organizations now. I am a member of SCBWI.
I joined SCBWI as well. Yeah.
Are you going to be going to the conference?
Yes. Hope to see you there. Yeah.
Yay.
I'm excited. Yeah. Finding a community seems to be really helpful, for sure.
For so many reasons. I feel like with traditional publishing especially, you really need to rely on that community because, as you mentioned, like publishing moves so slowly. And you really have to be able to be patient and navigate your way through that. And I feel like having people on your side who know what you're going through, because it's a very different lifestyle from a lot of other careers that move at a normal pace. Like it's definitely a special type of place, and having like-minded people who understand that struggle and like that journey is so helpful.
Yeah. It's easy to kind of live in your head too. I feel like when you're being creative and just kind of, you get that space and stuff, but it's like the critique group that you started, it sounds like that's a good thing because you're getting eyes on your work and you're getting feedback. That seems to be a positive thing. Are you still doing your critique group?
Yes. So I have the same critique group that I started out with. We've had members come in and some have left, and we've gotten new ones. But me and two other of the members, we've been there since the beginning, and we're still going strong. And it's just great. It's great for a lot of reasons. I feel like getting eyes on your work is wonderful, but also looking at other people's work is helpful too, because you're able to see. Sometimes I feel like when you're writing your own stuff, it's like you have blinders on and you're almost too close to a project to see what you're missing, right? And then you'll read something else and you'll be like, oh, this is missing this. And then you'll suddenly realize, oh, wait, my story is also missing this. And you'll make that connection almost through reading someone else's. So it's just really helpful.
Right. Those light bulb moments. Let's see here. Probably owns too many stuffed animals, but honestly, not sure where the line is on too many. Okay, so I love that you have this on your website. To the point I'm getting to is that I was given advice recently to sort of have like almost like a pitch deck or a mission statement, and I guess, a brand identity or, what you're about. And it seems like very clear when I'm looking at your website that you have that laid out. And is that something that you learned from these groups that you're a part of? How did you, because this is great.
To be honest with you, I have changed several things on my website. I kind of change things a lot,
Sure.
according to how I'm feeling at the time. I do have a mission statement on my website about, like on my main page about like why I write. And it's kind of my why, my big why for writing, like what kind of stories I want to share and why I'm writing them, what I'm hoping that they're doing for others. So like to enlighten, to make kids feel like they're not alone, that they're seen in something. And I think having something like that is really important.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to know what your reason for writing is. And when you share it with other people, it helps them to connect with you. I'm very much an introvert, but I feel like having that on my main page and kind of like just giving people that little glimpse of like who I am behind is helpful because it helps people really to connect with you. And ultimately, that's what you want. That's why you're writing, to connect with other people.
Right. I think sometimes like I guess I wouldn't say I'm an introvert. I'm kind of like an introverted extrovert. I'm sort of both. Like I have to
Yeah, hybrid.
recharge. Yes. But I find it so hard sometimes, and I'm glad that you mentioned that sometimes it changes for you to be able to just put that in a sentence, and it just feels like a very vulnerable thing to put out there. Um, so I'm trying to figure out how best to express those things and also not treat it too preciously, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. I feel like a lot of writers are in the same boat with you. Like we all pretty much understand
Must be.
exactly what you're trying to say.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay. Um, let's see. What else are we going to talk about here? This is all great. Thank you so much for offering your experience and sharing advice with me. I guess we haven't talked about your blog yet. Are you still blogging? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And I even prepared stuff to share with you because I was like, I'm gonna forget stuff. I know I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will tell you all about that. So I started blogging in 2021, and it was kind of after I had started gaining some more knowledge of the publishing industry, and I realized that I really wanted to branch out and become more part of the community. So in May of 2021, I started blogging here and there, just sharing random literary things, but I wasn't exactly sure who I wanted to direct my blog to, which with blogging, it's a lot like, marketing and everything else in publishing. If you don't have a clear idea of who that target audience is, you really can't market it because you don't know who you're writing to. So I had to figure out who is it that I'm really trying to reach.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that it was other kidlit writers like me. So very much like you, actually, I wanted to share with other people. I thought about all of the stuff that I had learned up to this point, and I had learned a lot of stuff and it was really great. But the one thing that all of the groups and courses and everything had in common was that everything had a price tag on it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
working as a librarian, which is a very modest, income, and working part-time because I was, dedicating a lot of time to writing as well, I realized that that is exactly what I wanted to do, right? Librarians are known for doing things for free for their community and providing things and services to people just because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those things cost money. And I realized this was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a resource where I could share stories and tips and helpful writing advice for writers and illustrators too. So that is when I decided that I wanted to launch my feature interview segment, which I launched in November of 2022.
Chelsea's World of Books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had 3 guests in 2022, 13 guests in 2023, 24 guests in 2024, and this year I've had 5 so far. one of them is actually going out of those 5 tomorrow live. So yeah, it's been wonderful. I feel like being able to talk to people all over, because I've talked to people, you know, all over this country and other countries too, like being able to see what that publishing experience has been like for writers and illustrators, and being able to share that for free with other people has been so awesome and fulfilling. And I feel like it's been enlightening for me in a lot of ways, because it's helped me to realize, like, one, I am not alone in this. Like, there are people all over the world who are passionate about this too. And two, it takes a long time for pretty much everyone. So, like, not to race. There's no rush. Like, we'll get there when we get there. But I think the thing that I have learned the most is to celebrate the little things, like each writing accomplishment. Like, it's not the destination, right? It's the journey. And there are so many wonderful things along the way. But yeah, I have really thoroughly enjoyed doing that. The feature interviews, I feel like, have been, I don't know, they've been so helpful for me, but it makes me so happy when I get, like, sometimes I'll get mail from people and they'll tell me, oh, thank you so much for this. Like, I was looking for whatever and I found it here. And that just makes me ecstatic.
Yeah. No, that's great that you are doing that, and recognizing that sometimes it almost feels like price gouging, I feel like, or just like kind of taking advantage of people's desire to get published and their passion projects. Like, there's a lot, you know, of gatekeeping, like you said, and I think that's amazing that you're doing that and offering resources to the kidlit community. So that's great. Is there anything else that you want to kind of speak into anyone listening about your experience writing or publishing, or any specific advice you'd like to pass on?
Ooh, specific advice. My advice is to be patient, both with publishing and with yourself. It requires a lot of giving grace to yourself and others. Don't take rejection personally, because it is a business at the end of the day. And I know that your heart is deeply involved in it, and that's why you're writing, because you love it. But rejection happens to literally everyone. Like, there are agents out there with clients who have, you know, big book deals, and they send out a story on sub and it gets rejected, just like other stories get rejected. It doesn't mean that they're rejecting you. It could just be something that didn't fit in the market at that time, or maybe they didn't have a spot for. But if you're really passionate about it, if it's something that you really care about, don't give up. Just keep going.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment. Leave your thoughts and leave a comment. And feel free to leave a comment. Have a great day. Bye.